Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going head to head with the number one enemy of clear visual communication. It's this hidden saboteur that just drains your audience's energy and totally tanks your message. Yep, we're talking about clutter. All right, let's get into it. Oh, you totally know the feeling, right? A slide pops up and it's just a mess. A complete tangle of lines and colors and text, and your first thought is probably something like, okay, that looks interesting, I guess, but I have no clue what it's trying to say. And before you can even begin to decipher it, you've mentally checked out. Well, that feeling of being completely overwhelmed, it actually has a name. It's called cognitive load. And here's a good way to think about it. Your brain's attention is kind of like a computer's processing power. It's RAM, right? And it is absolutely finite. So when we show our audience a visual, we're asking them to use up some of that precious mental RAM. Anything in that visual that doesn't directly help them understand the information, that's what we call extraneous cognitive load. It's just waste. So here's the bottom line. As people who design information, we have to be absolutely ruthless. I mean, we need to be incredibly smart about how we spend our audience's limited attention. Every single line, every border, every shadow, every little color change, it all has a cost. And our job is to make damn sure the benefit is worth that cost. So how do we actually fight back against all this clutter? Well, the good news is our brains are already hardwired to find order in chaos. Way back in the early 1900s, the Gestalt School of Psychology figured out these secret rules our minds use to group information together. And understanding these rules, that's our superpower for creating clean, clear designs. First up, we've got proximity. Now this one is super simple. We automatically see objects that are physically close to each other as belonging to the same group. It's a mental shortcut, a little life hack our brain uses to organize the world without even thinking about it. And this is where that abstract idea becomes a really powerful tool. In a table, for instance, just by changing the spacing, that's it. You can completely change how we read it. If things are spaced closer vertically, boom, our eyes see columns. If they're closer horizontally, we'll naturally read across in rows. It's the strategic use of white space, not a bunch of clunky borders, that's actually guiding our eye. Next up is similarity. Our brains just love to group things together that look alike. Doesn't matter if it's the same color, the same shape, the same size. If they look similar, we lump them together. It's another one of those quick mental shortcuts for finding patterns and making sense of things fast. And here's a brilliant example of how you can use this. Just by making all the items in a single row the same color, you're sending a huge signal to the viewer, hey, read across. This simple, elegant use of color does all the work that heavy grid lines used to do, which means we can get rid of all that extra clutter and let the data shine. The principle of enclosure is all about creating boundaries. We perceive objects that are physically enclosed together, even if it's just a light background, as being part of their own distinct group. Our brain just loves a good container because it makes it super clear what's in and what's out. And you know what? It doesn't take much at all. Take a look at this chart. See that light shaded area? That's it. That simple background is enough to create a totally separate group for the forecast data, splitting it clearly from the actual data. It's such a clean way to build categories without adding a bunch of messy lines. Our brains are absolutely fantastic at filling in the blanks. The principle of closure means we tend to see whole, complete figures even when parts are missing. We just crave simplicity and completeness, so our mind just goes ahead and draws the rest of the shape for us. It's pretty cool. Now this is a declutterer's best friend. This is the reason we can get away with deleting things like chart borders and heavy background boxes. Even without a full border, our brain perceives the white space around a graph as forming a cohesive shape. And by removing those unnecessary lines, we're letting the data itself, the most important part, really pop. All right, the principle of continuity is all about following a path. Our eyes will instinctively follow the smoothest, most continuous line when looking at different objects. We're wired to see a fluid line, not a series of jarring, abrupt turns. Our brain just assumes things are going to keep going on their established path. So what does this mean for us? Well, because of this principle, we can often just get rid of the vertical y-axis line from a bar chart. Why? Because our eyes are already following the perfectly aligned starting point of all the bars. That consistent white space creates its own powerful invisible line. And finally, we have connection. When we see objects that are physically connected, say with a line, we perceive them as a group.
This is one of the strongest visual cues we've got. It's so powerful it often overrides other principles, like things being the same color or shape.
And the most common example of this is, of course, the line chart. I mean, the entire reason a line chart even works is because of this very principle. That simple line explicitly connects all the individual data points, forcing our brain to see them as a single related series, usually moving through time.
Okay, so now we know the principles. But clutter isn't always about having too many things on the page. Sometimes it's about a lack of visual order. And when a design isn't thoughtful, your audience feels it. They might not be able to explain exactly why, but they know something is just off.
Take a look at this. All the information's there. It's not, the worst thing in the world, but it just feels messy, a little chaotic, right? It makes your brain work just a little bit too hard. Why does this feel so disorganized? Just let your eyes wander for a second. Where do they even want to land? Okay, here are the culprits. That center-aligned text, it creates these ragged, messy edges on both sides, so there's no clean line for your eye to follow. And the diagonal lines and labels, they're jarring, and they're actually slower for our brains to process. On top of that, everything feels so cramped together. There's just no room to breathe. And now, look at the after. It's the exact same content, but just notice that strong, clean, vertical line created by left-aligning the text. See how that strategic use of white space gives every element its own little space? The whole thing now feels calm, organized, and just effortless to read. That right there is the power of visual order. So let's put everything we've just learned into practice. We're going to take a real-world, kind of messy graph and transform it step by step. Here's our challenge for today. An IT manager is tracking support tickets, how many were received versus how many were processed. And this chart, it's a classic example of what happens when we just accept the default settings in our software. It's noisy, it's busy, and the actual story is getting totally lost in all that junk. All right, here's our 6-step game plan. Step 1, we're going to remove that chart border. Thanks to the closure principle, we know our brain will see it as a complete object anyway. Step 2, the grid lines are out of here. They're just visual noise getting in our way. Step 3, those little data markers on the lines, they can go. The connection principle tells us the line itself is doing the heavy lifting. Step 4, we'll clean up those access labels. No more diagonal text, no more useless trailing zeros. Step 5, we are going to label the data lines directly. This uses the proximity principle, so our viewers' eyes don't have to bounce back and forth to a legend. And finally, step 6, we'll use color to link those labels to the lines, leveraging similarity to make that connection instant. By following those steps, you can take a chart that's confusing and turn it into a clear, compelling story. The most important thing to remember is that decluttering isn't just about making things look pretty. It's about respecting your audience's time and attention and making sure your message actually lands. So, take a look at your own work. What's the first piece of clutter you're going to eliminate?